Welcome to NYSERDA's Regional Clean Energy Hub Clearinghouse Q+A webinar. Your speaker today will be Bianca Shaw from NYSERDA's Communities and Local Government team. The purpose of this webinar is to provide an opportunity for attendees to ask questions they might have on the Clearinghouse, established to promote teaming arrangements and partnerships for the forthcoming Regional Clean Energy Hub solicitation. As a reminder, we will not be discussing the details of the Regional Clean Energy Hub solicitation on today's call. Bianca, I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to today's Q&A session for the Regional Clean Energy Hub Clearinghouse. I'm joined today by Janice Dean with NYSERDA's Counsel's Office, Doreen Knudsen with the Contract Management Team at NYSERDA. They'll be on hand to address any legal or contractual questions that may come up during today's session. I'm also joined today by Chris Cole, the Director of the Energy Affordability and Equity Team at NYSERDA. So let's get started. As Lisa mentioned, we will not be discussing the details of the Regional Clean Energy Hub solicitation, but there will be two pre-bid webinars currently scheduled for July 1st and August 3rd, following the launch of the RFP. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions about the solicitation. And I'm sure by now, most of you have listened to the pre-recorded webinar, or at least I hope you've listened to the Clearinghouse webinar that was posted last week. So today's webinar will be dedicated to addressing any questions you may have on the Clearinghouse. And the Clearinghouse is a web-based matchmaking site to promote teaming arrangements for proposals to the forthcoming Regional Clean Energy Hub RFP. We know that achievement of the objectives of the Climate Act will require that all communities be actively engaged in the clean energy transition, including residents and communities that have traditionally faced barriers to participating in or otherwise benefiting from New York's clean energy economy. We also know that in each region, there are multiple organizations that can offer subject matter expertise and help achieve the goal of the hubs. However, some of these organizations may not be in a position to serve as the lead organization. So the Clearinghouse is being provided as a resource to potential proposers, and registration is not required in order to propose for the solicitation. The Clearinghouse will be updated regularly, and statement of interest submittals will be accepted through September 1st, 2021. And a bit of a legal disclaimer here, participation in or use of the Clearinghouse does not guarantee or disqualify an award or selection as part of a proposing team. Teaming arrangements and partnerships are at the sole discretion of the individual organizations. So NYSERDA will be issuing a request for proposals, or RFP, to engage communities across New York State, particularly disadvantaged communities, to participate in the clean energy transformation. Through this RFP, NYSERDA will be establishing regional clean energy hubs, one in each of the 10 economic development regions across the state, to assist communities and residents with accessing clean energy programs and solutions and participating in the clean energy economy. These hubs will play an instrumental role by positioning disadvantaged communities to benefit from the clean energy transition, advancing solutions to address local barriers in accessing clean energy programs, and engaging in the clean energy economy, improving opportunities for residents to inform program development, and advancing diversity in the clean energy workforce by connecting residents and small businesses with resources and training opportunities that can lead to jobs. The hubs will partner with organizations within their region from across the clean energy, social services, housing, economic development, health, and academic sectors to provide a holistic, multidisciplinary approach to meeting the energy and climate justice needs of disadvantaged communities. The contractors selected to perform hub services are expected to serve all income levels. However, the core and proactive outreach and engagement will target those participants located in disadvantaged communities. So before we open it up to questions, I do want to just briefly walk you through the actual Clearinghouse site and how to navigate to that site. So if you, I'm just backing up here, and can someone please confirm that you can see the web browser for me?
We can say it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So if you navigate to nycerta.ny.gov, this is the home page, and select Find a Program. You can simply search by the word hub, and it will take you down to Regional Clean Energy Hubs, which is the Clearinghouse. This is what we are referring to as the Clearinghouse landing page, which provides a high-level overview of what the Clearinghouse purpose and goals are, as well as the two-phase process, which is the Clearinghouse and the forthcoming solicitation. There is also a link to the pre-recorded webinar that was posted last week. So we would definitely encourage you to listen to that if you haven't done so already. And organizations interested in teaming on a proposal or otherwise partnering with the hub can complete the statement of interest form, which is also included in the Clearinghouse site. And these are some of the fields you would need to complete. So it includes your name, the name of your organization. There's a drop-down list for the organization type. You'd also select what county or counties you currently serve and can serve through the hub. If you scroll down further, there's the region that you would like to team up on a proposal for or partner with. And then also you can specify whether you want to subcontract or partner with the hub. And lastly, what services you provide in those regions or those counties. So again, this is the form that will need to be completed by organizations that would like to team, which is really subcontracting or otherwise partnering with the hub. This form is not meant for the primary proposers or those organizations that intend to submit a proposal. This statement of interest form is not intended for those organizations to complete. And then lastly, the Regional Clean Energy Hub Clearinghouse list. This is the actual site where any organizations that have completed the statement of interest form will be listed for primary proposers as a resource to reference any organizations interested in teaming or partnering with a hub in their region. So that's that's our brief overview of the Regional Clean Energy Hub Clearinghouse. At this point, I'd like to open it up to Q&A. So Lisa, if there's anything that's coming via the chat or anyone has raised their hand, we can go ahead and open it up.
Great. Thank you, Bianca. Yes, we do have some questions coming in. I see Chris Carrick has his hand raised. So Chris, I will unmute you. Please ask your question.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Since the RFP has not been released yet, I wonder what organizations that are yet uncertain about whether they intend to lead a team or to be a subcontractor or to simply partner on delivery of services, how might you advise them to either complete this statement of interest form or to not? I guess the real question is, if we do submit the statement of interest form, that would not preclude us from potentially leading a proposal later on. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chris. It doesn't preclude you if you complete this form from, submitting a proposal in the future. This is really just meant to be a resource for those organizations that move forward with submitting a proposal to help identify potential partners and subcontractors.
Okay, great. And just a quick follow-up then, I assume the same would apply if an organization indicated on this statement of interest that they were interested in subcontracting as opposed to delivering services, but later on, through conversation with other partners, they changed that approach.
Correct. Yeah, this is not, it's non-binding. If you fill out this form, it's not going to, it's not going to limit your ability to propose or subcontract, and you can certainly change whatever role you choose to play in that team.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. We have another question. I see Joan has her hand raised. Joan, I'm going to unmute you. Please proceed with your question.
Thank you so much. I have offices in Long Island, New Paltz, and Manhattan. So would I be able to participate in those 3 areas?
Hi, Joan. Did I hear you correctly? You said Long Island, New York City, and where else?
New Paltz?
Okay. And you're interested in partnering in all 3 regions with a hub, is that correct?
Yes. Is that possible?
Yes, if you have what's that?
I'm just asking if it's possible to do all 3.
Yes, absolutely. If you have the staff, the capacity to support, the regional clean energy hub in each of those regions or areas. The key is that we want to ensure there's adequate coverage and a range of services in each of these regions. So if you can provide that and you've got the local presence, I don't think we would allow that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Bianca, we have another question. This one's from the chat, and it reads, so if your organization wants to be a lead, do not fill this out. But if you are unsure, fill this out. Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, so the clearinghouse is really meant for those organizations that want to be part of the team and not necessarily be the lead. But if you're unsure, I would say definitely use your best judgment. You can complete that. Again, it doesn't preclude you from submitting a proposal, being a lead in the future for the forthcoming RFP. But again, the clearinghouse is intended for those organizations that want to be a subcontractor or otherwise partner with the hub and not necessarily be the lead or the prime organization.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have another follow-up question. Can subcontractors affiliate with more than one primary contractor?
So if I understood the question correctly, they're asking if a subcontractor can be affiliated with more than one hub for one region. And I think the answer to that, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question, Bianca. Can subcontractors affiliate with more than one primary contractor?
Yes, yeah, and I think the goal is, subcontractors would have to consider their own capacity and ability to effectively provide those services in each of those regions that they're intending to, team with the hub on. I would say, it's presumably or conceivably a subcontractor could team up with more than one hub. However, you're going to want to partner with the hub that best fits or where you think you fit into their model, or you're a good fit for how they're going to approach the goals of the hubs in that specific region. So, you can certainly partner with more than one hub, but ideally you're partnering with the hub where you think it's a good fit for your organization.
Thank you, Bianca. We have a raised hand here from Philip Brown. Mr. Brown, I am unmuting you. Please proceed with your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip Brown. I'm from the Shinnecock Housing Department. I'm the director of the Shinnecock Housing Department. I have a number of renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives going on. And I'd like to know, first of all, would the Shinnecock Reservation in Southampton, Long Island be considered a disadvantaged community? And two, how do we partner with the hub to work on some of our, some of the partners in the hub to work on some of our renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives?
Hi, Philip. Thanks for that question. So
Yes.
the first thing I would suggest, because I don't know offhand whether or not that community falls into what we would consider a disadvantaged community, we do have a website which includes a lookup tool. So you can actually navigate to NYSERDA's website and search by specific address to see whether or not it falls into what we're defining as a disadvantaged community. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that site, but
Okay.
I believe I'm sharing it on my screen. Let me
Yes,
just
I see
double
it.
check here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So this is the interim criteria for what we're defining, or what the state has defined as disadvantaged communities. So I would definitely reference this site. And in reference to how you can partner with the hub to implement some of those energy efficiency or renewable energy projects, I would say definitely complete the statement of interest form, and get a better understanding of what those organizations are looking to do, and maybe they can help address some of those projects that you're working on. I think the goal of the hubs will be to help implement some of those local projects. So it really just depends on who the hub is for that region. And if you fill out the statement of interest form and you're contacted to be a partner, they can include it in the proposal if it makes sense. But we can't guarantee that that's going to be
Right.
that your organization would be selected as a partner. Ideally, any organization working in that region would partner with your organization or similar organizations, but again, it depends on who the hub is.
Okay. How did New York determine what a disadvantaged community is? Because I know under USDA, they go by rural, and because we live in the Hamptons area, our reservation is considered rural. But when you look at our population and our income compared to the living standards compared to the rest of the Hamptons homesteads and residents around here, it's much lower. So did New York State take that into consideration when they thought about this particular area? And if not, who would we speak to address that?
So the interim criteria for disadvantaged communities is being developed, or was developed, by the Climate Action Council through the Climate Justice Working Group. So, I think it would have to go through them. Unfortunately, we don't dictate, what those disadvantaged communities are. And again, it is interim criteria, so that definition is being further refined and will likely change. So, if your community does not fall within one of those areas currently, it's possible that it could in the future.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bianca, this is Chris Cole from NYSERDA. Can I just add a little more to the disadvantaged communities conversation?
Yes, please.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah, thanks. This is a bit of a work in progress. So I think those of us who've been following the work to implement the CLCPA might be familiar with kind of the process with the Climate Action Council and the Climate Justice Working Group, but let me give you just a quick overview of what's happening there. And so essentially the CLCPA requires this Climate Justice Working Group to identify criteria for identifying communities that would be considered to be disadvantaged under the law. And so this is a process that's ongoing, and the Climate Justice Working Group is looking to establish a set of draft criteria in the July timeframe, which would then be put out for public comment. So there'll be a number of public statement hearings. I think there's at least 6 of them that will happen, and then stakeholders and citizens can provide, written feedback back to the state on those draft criteria. So at some point later this year, we'll have a set of criteria to identify communities, like I said, that would be considered to be disadvantaged under the law. But that's not to say that, as I think Bianca kind of framed at the outset, we would expect that the regional clean energy hubs would be, a critical component to driving access and, increased participation within the clean energy economy across the state. So we do, under the law, need to deliver benefits to communities that are considered to be disadvantaged, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't want the hubs to also be engaging with, communities across the state, especially those that may be identified as, being underserved for other reasons. So, just to be clear, the list of criteria or the communities that are identified on the screen right now were identified to be, a set of criteria to help the state start to roll out initiatives until there's a final set of criteria established by the Climate Justice Working Group. So I would not consider this set of criteria to at all kind of reflect what the final, disadvantaged communities criteria to be. And I think the other thing that's going to be important, and we'll follow up with everybody that's on this webinar in the future when we're ready to do the public statement hearings on the actual disadvantaged communities criteria. So it'll be important to hear everyone's opinions and perspectives on the criteria that the working group has come up with. I hope that's helpful context.
It is, Chris. Thank you very much, because I worked with Ryan Madden he comes down to the reservation from the Long Island Progressive Coalition and also New York Renews. We sit in on a number of those meetings, and this is a conversation that was brought up in that particular meeting. So I'm glad to hear it, coming from your guys' side as well. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Sorry, Bianca, for taking a little extra time there, but I'll turn it back over to you.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.
That was very helpful. Thank you so much, Chris. So moving right along, we do have several questions. So the next question, Bianca, is can you please speak more about the distinction between teaming and partnering?
Sure. So teaming, when we say teaming, we're referring to subcontracting. So subcontracting is, characterized by a contractual relationship between, one organization and the primary proposer or the lead organization, whereas a partnership is not necessarily, there is no contractual agreement. There may be, like a letter of commitment or a letter of support stating that, the organization would like to work with the hub or whoever the organization is that proposes to the solicitation. But the distinction is that teaming would be, subcontracting. There's this contractual agreement, which may include some compensation or other, in-kind services, whereas partners is a less contractual arrangement, and it's really just meant to work with other organizations that are already providing services, in New York State, in those areas, and they want to work with the hub to help amplify the message of the hubs. And I apologize, I'm getting some background noise. Okay, so partnerships are really for organizations that are already doing similar work in these areas, that want to work with the hub to not only amplify the work that the hubs are doing, but maybe, get the word out to their network or partners and constituents, as well as maybe assist with getting the services out to their recipients of whatever services they provide.
Bianca, it's Janice. I'll just add one note from the legal side. If a proposer comes into a solicitation with team members or partners on the solicitation, that covers their competitive process if a proposing team comes in and notes that they will, after a NYSERDA award, be procuring subcontractors, there are state requirements that would attach to that procurement. You would have to do a competitive process over $50,000 for subs. So that's another difference that may be worth noting for folks.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you, Janice. That's important information. Following up with that, we have an important question. Is the $35 million over 5 years available for each applicant or the total available through the program? And will there be match or cost share requirements?
Thanks, Lisa. So the funding is up to $35 million over 5 years. That's for the entire program for all 10 regions across the state. And with regard to the cost share or match requirements, I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss that now without the solicitation being launched. Janice, am I able to address that?
I would say no, as this was not, this call was not made publicly available to all participants around the state who had questions about that solicitation. We do have to keep the topic here local to the hubs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question. If we already have a good sense of which organizations we intend to partner with, is there any need for those organizations to fill out the clearinghouse form?
I think it's really up to those other organizations that may not necessarily plan to propose. You know, if they feel confident that the organization they're working with who's going to submit a proposal.
Next available agent. We are working to ensure the safety and well-being of our customers.
Remind everyone to please mute your line if you're not speaking or asking a question.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'd say it's not necessary. It's really meant as a resource. So if you've already identified an organization that intends to propose, you've got, you know, a solidified relationship with them, you're confident in their approach, I would say it's not necessary or it's not mandatory that you fill it out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question, Bianca. Will leads be required or expected to partner with organizations that identify themselves in the clearinghouse for a particular region? Again, I'll repeat the question. Will leads be required or expected to partner with organizations that identify themselves in the clearinghouse for a particular region?
No. So as I stated previously, any, you know, subcontracting agreements or partnerships are at the sole discretion of, you know, each of these organizations. So, you know, if the lead has identified who they want to work with, you know, and they've got an adequate team that's going to provide sufficient coverage and services across an entire region, we would not expect them to, you know, partner or contract with organizations that have submitted their information on the clearinghouse. We would certainly, you know, recommend that they review the clearinghouse list to make sure that they've got a holistic team that provides that range of services across the region. So again, it's meant to be a resource. We're not going to require a proposer to pick any one of those organizations that complete the clearinghouse form.
Hey, Bianca, this is Chris Cole again. Can I also just chime in with another thought on that as well?
Sure.
I think we also want to make sure that, you know, while there's a distinction, I think, between partnering in the form of like an official subcontract, with an organization to deliver services under the contract. But we also want to just make sure that the organizations that are serving as the hub and are delivering services are able to coordinate with other, organizations within the region. So, for example, there may be an organization that is coordinating with the Office for the Aging and the weatherization subgrantees and other, local community colleges, right, in order to make sure that they're connecting residents and, communities with kind of the whole kind of host of possible, resources to kind of engage in and participate, within the clean energy economy. So we want to make sure that there's, coordination happening by the hub organizations with, other organizations within the region.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris. That's actually a great segue to this next question I'll pose to both you and Bianca. If there are multiple organizations, does all the funding flow through the lead organization, or can partners receive separate contracts?
So for contracting purposes, the funding will flow to the lead organization selected to serve as a hub in the region. And the funding would flow to, any subcontractors that they contract with. So NYSERDA would only have, the contract with the 10 regional clean energy hubs who are serving as the primes, not their subcontractors.
Okay, great. I don't see anyone else with their hands raised. And Laura, I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. Are there any other questions participants have that they'd like to raise? Oh, great. We have a question, Erica. Erica, I am unmuting you. Please proceed with your question.
Thank you so much. I just want to get clarification. If we currently have a contract under NYSERDA, for example, the clean heating and cooling communities, we will still be included. That wouldn't be that would, in that case, be a requirement where the hub would take us to finish out our contract. Is that correct?
Erica, you're asking if, as part of a hub in a specific region, if there is an active clean heating and cooling campaign, that the hub would be required to partner with that organization leading the campaign?
Correct. Or until we at least finish out our contracts. Like, it might not carry through all 5 years, but that was my understanding from my supervisor, and I wanted to make sure that that was clarified and correct.
No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the hub would necessarily be required or mandated to, partner or subcontract with the lead organization of an existing campaign. We would encourage, the organizations to work with any other organizations that are already doing this type of work in their region, to leverage that expertise and that relationship that they've already built with the community. But we cannot mandate that they subcontract with an existing campaign team.
Okay. Who would I connect with later to continue this conversation?
That would be myself and or Lori Clark, but you could certainly send that question to cleanenergyhub@nyserda.ny.gov, and we can certainly follow up on that.
Thank you, because you're getting conflicting information. Appreciated.
Sure.
Okay, and I see we do have another question. Oh, from Adam Flint. Adam, I am going to unmute you. Please proceed with your question.
Yeah, I have that question, and also wanted to follow up on Erica's question. Is it possible to have more than one lead agency in an RADC region? In other words, if the region were divided in half, for example.
At this time, we're envisioning one lead per region, so 10 leads across the state.
Okay. And then in terms of Erica's question, I would urge the team to huddle around that, because having been intimately involved, as you know, in the design of this program, that was certainly not our intent, that there would be NYSERDA programs that were addressing the same audience that were doing so in parallel. That's pretty much in contravention to one of the main purposes of the hub, which is to end that practice so that we have some coherence for the sake of the public.
Yeah, so Adam, the goal of the hubs is to be more holistic and provide, as you mentioned, that single point of entry. You know, without the solicitation being out on the streets, I can't get into further detail. But the idea is that we would align, you know, some of those activities that are already underway through, you know, the hubs. So without getting into further detail, you know, I can't really say much more, but I understand where you're coming from, and I agree. We definitely don't want that redundancy. So that's, you know, part of the goal of the hubs is to eliminate that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. We do have a question in the chat, which might need more context. But it's from a contractor, and it says, at the contractor level, actually delivering the services, how will the funding work? I guess the question is, how will the funding work at the contract level? So if that's not clear, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so if I understood the question correctly, they're asking how the funding will work for is it the subcontractors or just for the hubs in general? I'm not understanding.
Sure. Scott Burleson, would you care to ask the question directly? Okay, Scott, I've unmuted you if you want to ask your question directly. Okay, he may not be on the line. I'll go to the next question, Bianca. And that is, what's the expectation for how long partnerships or teams will last? Over the 5-year term? Is it okay for lead organizations to work with different partners at different times?
So I would say that the key with any partnership is to have, you know, that solidified or established relationship, which does take time to develop or establish. So while we don't expect, you know, organizations to work with or hubs to work with the same organizations over the 5-year term, I think ideally they will have those same partnerships for the duration of the program, as well as new partners throughout. But there's no specific term for how long, you know, you would be expected to work with a specific organization. It's really going to depend on the needs in your region, as well as your strategy for meeting the goals of the hub initiative.
Great, thank you, Bianca. We do have another question from Mr. Douglas Champ. Mr. Champ, I am unmuting you. Please proceed with your question.
Yes, first of all, this is a long time process of energy hubbing that I think is very interesting and desirable, but it's going to lead to some interesting issues on terms of eligibility. I talked to Lori Clark about this a little bit, and I wanted to make sure the panel understands. I'm sure they may, but let's take Chautauqua County. Chautauqua County actually has in it 7 utilities. They have a municipal, They have 3 munis, they have a co-op, and they have 2 privates, 1 electric and 1 gas. The system benefit charges that are required for NYSERDA participation precludes all the municipals from being involved in any of the NYSERDA programs unless they're random ones that are out there on a very selective basis. In other words, going into the hub arrangement, the munis who don't pay system benefit charges are paying a disproportionate amount of money into funding the state energy plan. How do you think the energy hubs are going to work and coordinate NYSERDA solicitation and also hub involvement when these municipal utilities are not eligible for the program?
So
that's my question.
Yeah, so I think we're not precluding any organization, or municipality that, regardless
Well,
of.
No, let me make my point clearer. NYSERDA has specific solicitations, RFPs out there all the time.
Right.
Most of them, I would say, are not eligible because if you pay into a system benefit charge, you are. If you don't, you're not eligible. So how is the hub involvement going to work with those municipalities that don't pay system benefit charges as ratepayers to help solicit and develop a regional hub program within those specific areas?
So for purposes of the RFP, there's no distinction for the regional clean energy hub. So
but you're going to have, ma'am, you're going to have a problem in coordinating those activities if they want to further the development of a specific NYSERDA program, which they're not eligible for. In other words, the additional funding for that program is not going to be available.
This is
Bianca,
Janice.
this is Chris. Can I jump in? Oh, sorry, Janice, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, so, I think one of the things to make sure everybody's, aware of is there are nice sort of programs, right? Particularly the residential efficiency programs are renewable programs where we incorporate RGGI funding, which can be used to serve customers in muni territories. So I think that's that's an important point to make. I think when we're talking about this question of how do municipalities partner with and develop a hub, I think it goes back to the points that Bianca was making earlier. We want to make sure that there's an organization within the region that can work with and connect the various organizations and communities that are located within the region. So there should be a number of organizations that can do that. But I mean, I guess the specific points you're making about munis funding are contributing to the system's benefit charge and being able to participate in programs. I think when it comes to the clean energy programs NYSERDA has, we do incorporate RGGI funding, like I said, but we could set up some additional time to talk about the details on this as well, because I feel like I'm missing another point that you're trying to make.
Well, I would like to do that, and I think it's important to understand the dynamics of the funding that's available or not available in helping to facilitate the HUD networking, because in 5 counties in the Western District, 3 are very rural, 2 are very urban, and the needs and demands on the allocations of funding are going to be totally different. I just don't want to see certain areas precluded of advancing renewable energy platform in terms of not being eligible to fulfill the ultimate goals after the program is no longer available to continue the participation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so can we... Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Lisa, this is Chris. Yep, just saying, in the interest of time, maybe we can have a follow-up on that specific topic. And I think just to be clear for everyone, the intent here is inclusion, right? We want to, if there are any pain points or issues that, you all are seeing in terms of, the hubs potentially not being able to serve, parts of a region, we'd like to hear about it and look for a solution. So let's have a regroup on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Tampin and Chris. So just want to do a quick time check. We do have about 10 minutes left, and we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we encourage any others who have any remaining questions to please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Adam, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you, and please proceed with your question.
That was an old hand. My apologies.
Okay, I'm sorry. No problem. We have another question in the chat. Oh, we have no more questions in the chat. So if anyone else has
I
any,
think I did see one last question come in. And actually it was addressed. Never mind.
Okay, well, oh, here's another question that just came in. Will each region be equally funded?
At this time, I don't think we can discuss the funding allocations by region. I don't know, Janice, if we can say yes or answer a yes or no to that, but
Not at this time.
okay, thank you.
Understood, thank you. Another question here. Can hubs disperse funds to aligned program partners or just to subcontractors?
So if you're working with an organization and you're dispersing funds, there would need to be some sort of agreement with them, that organization. So that would technically be a subcontractor.
Thank you, Bianca. I currently do not see any other questions or hands being raised. So Bianca, I will send it back over to you for any closing remarks.
I do see a question in there. This is Kelly. It's how will you be measuring the impact of the clearinghouse structure over time? And I just want to make sure that the clearinghouse, this sign up, this registration list, this is really put together as a courtesy to potential proposers to identify subcontractors and other partners within that can be used in their proposal. The clearinghouse is not a structure that's going to stay intact. It's merely something that's put together by NYSERDA to help develop good proposers. So clearinghouse will go away after we have the contracts in place.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. We do have another question. Will these hubs be delivering services only for disadvantaged communities, or will they be able to deliver services more broadly?
So the hubs will be serving in the entire region, all communities, but the focus and the core, proactive outreach and engagement will be to disadvantaged communities.
Thank you. And a follow-up to that, can you identify the 10 regions, Bianca?
Yes, we do have a list on our website. I can quickly run through them. There's the Capital Region, Central New York, Finger Lakes, Mid-Hudson. I think I skipped Long Island. Mid-Hudson, the Mohawk Valley region, the North Country, the Southern Tier, and Western New York.
Thank you, Bianca. I do not see any other questions at this time. I'll give it one more minute for anyone who has any remaining questions. Please submit them in the chat or raise your hand.
Okay. Well,
Well, thank you. Go ahead, Bianca.
I was just going to say thank you everyone for participating in today's Q&A session. Again, if you have any questions related to the clearinghouse, you can email us at cleanenergyhub@nyserda.ny.gov. And as Lisa mentioned, the webinar will be or has been recorded and will be posted to the Clearinghouse webpage by end of week. So thanks everyone and have a good rest of your day.